What does the co-op approval process look like? In this video, we'll focus on a co-op board package, what kind of documents are required, and the timeline. At the end of this video, you will know what exactly to expect from a co-op so you can be prepared and avoid any delays and frustrations. What is up, everyone? My name is Sargis, a licensed real estate agent based here in New York City, and this channel is all about New York City real estate. Buying a home is a step-by-step process. In this video, we're going to talk about the step 7, which is the board package, also known as the purchase application, and step 8, which is the board interview process when buying a co-op in New York City. I also have a video where I talk about the details of each step, which will be linked in the description below. Now let's start with a timeline. Technically, steps 6 and 7 start at the same time. When you have a signed contract, you'll start working on your mortgage application with your loan officer if you're financing, and your agent will start preparing your board package. But you will need your bank commitment letter and a few other bank related documents in order to complete and submit your board package. That's why it's important for your agent to start putting together your board package as soon as possible to avoid any unnecessary delays. As you can see here, your actual board package step is after you have a signed contract. But stay till the end of this video because there are some important things that you will need to do and have it ready before even submitting an offer. I'll talk about this later in the video. Now, every co-op is different. Some of them can have strict rules and requirements, and some of them can be a little bit flexible. So it really depends on the building. The purpose of the board package is to qualify the buyers to make sure that they meet all the financial requirements and they are able to carry the apartment without any financial problems in the future. The most important thing is to work with an agent who has done a lot of transactions and has an experience in submitting board packages. You can experience a significant delay or, in the worst case, a rejection if your board package is disorganized, incomplete, and there are missing documents or checks. Now I'm going to show you what a typical board package looks like. In my experience of completing multiple board packages, those are the things that I see is required pretty much in every purchase application. But again, it all depends on the building. Usually the first thing a lot of co-ops require is the applicant's letter to the board. This is called a cover letter or an introduction letter. You get the idea. This letter is your chance to make that first connection with the board, since this is the first thing they will see before even looking at your finances. Usually in this letter, you tell them who you are, what do you do, what are your interests outside of your work, your hobbies, what do you like about this building, what do you like about this apartment, and why would you like to live there. After the letter usually comes the purchase application, followed by the financial forms. This is an example of what the REBNY purchase application looks like for co-ops. Depending on which variation that specific building uses, it might look slightly different, but the information you provide is pretty much the same. It starts with the basic information such as the co-op's name, purchase price, number of shares, the managing agent's information, and so on. Then the next section is the seller's information. Name, email, phone number, attorney information, etc. Then we have a section for seller's broker. The same information for the buyer, buyer's attorney, lender, and the buyer's broker. The next section is more personal information. Name, address, employer, supervisor's information, educational background, and so on. Then we have additional information section. Your schools, pets, if you know anyone in the building, emergency contact, and so on. I'm not going to read all the questions, but feel free to pause the video if you want to read those questions. Then we have a section for applicant's housing history. Current landlord's name, address, phone number, rent, and things like that. The next section is for business and professional references, followed by personal references. Most of the time you'll need to provide reference letters as well, but here you just need to put their names and addresses. Some forms might ask for their phone numbers as well. Then we have a section for your banking information. After that, you see some yes or no questions. If you have any judgments against you, any bankruptcies in the last 7 years, if any part of your down payment is borrowed money, and so on. Again, pause the video if you want to read all the questions. Then you basically sign and certify that all the information is true and correct. Next, typically you have your financial statement forms. This also might look a little different depending on what variation of the form they use in the building that you're trying to buy, but the information they require is pretty much the same. Now, this is the most important part that needs to be done correctly. Doing this incorrectly results in significant delays or rejection. Everything here needs to be accurate, and the numbers have to be the exact same that your supporting documents show. The first section is your monthly income sources, your monthly salary, bonuses, commission, and so on. Then we have your projected expenses after you complete the purchase, monthly maintenance of the apartment you're buying, and the monthly payments to your lender, plus any other existing loans and debts that you have. This is where they see your debt to income ratio, which is how much money you earn versus how much debt you have. For example, if your total income adds up to $20,000 and your total projected debt is $4,500, including your housing payments, that is a 22.5% debt to income ratio. Generally speaking, 25% and under is what's considered to be safe. But again, it all depends on the building. Some buildings can be a little bit flexible with this number, and some might even want to see less than 20% or less than 15% DTI. The next section is all your assets and liabilities. Your cash, your brokerage accounts, any real estate that you own, car, retirement funds, and so on. And you also need to specify what kind of liabilities you have. The final number will be your net worth, which is your assets minus your liabilities. Then we have to itemize everything. Schedule A is your cash, Schedule B is your stocks and bonds, Schedule C is real estate, and Schedule D is other assets that don't fall into any of the previous three categories. The next section is if you receive any dividend or partnership income from a family business. Then you sign this as well and certify that everything is true and correct. Again, this is the most important part of your board package that needs to be prepared very carefully. I would never suggest anyone, especially the first-time home buyers, to ever try to put together your board package. Always work with a pro real estate agent. Before we move on, if you're still with me, I would appreciate if you just tap that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real estate videos. That would help me a lot. Moving on, the next item in your board package is the contract of sale. At this point, your agent should have a copy of your fully executed contract to include in your board package. Next on the list, depending on the building, is usually your employment verification letter, which states your start date, position held, and your annual salary. Then a few personal and professional reference letters. Your agent should be able to let you know how many you need for each. Next typically are the documents verifying your income and assets. Usually you need to submit your pay stubs, W-2 forms, bank statements, your brokerage accounts, any retirement account statements, basically proof of everything that you said you have in your financial statements. And most importantly, the numbers that you see in your financial statements must be the exact same numbers that you see in your verification documents. And lousy board packages where the fields aren't properly filled out, supporting documents are missing, or the agents that don't bother to double check, triple check the numbers, and things like that are one of the reasons why the buyers are being rejected or the board packages are being returned to them, causing delays. They also ask for past 2 or 3 years of tax returns. Somewhere in that package you will see a credit report release form. This basically is a document where you give your permission to them to perform a credit check on you. Also, when buying a co-op with financing, your board package needs to include what's called an Aztec recognition agreement. We're not going to get into the details of this agreement, but in short, since your loan will be collateralized by the shares and proprietary lease, this agreement is basically a contract between you, co-op, and the bank that specifies who has the first lien on the property in case if you default on your loan and what are the obligations of each parties. And the last piece of information for your board package is usually a loan commitment letter. This is why it's important that your agent starts your board package right after you have a signed contract. That way you'll be ready to submit your board package as soon as you receive your loan commitment letter. Usually every co-op will have a specific structure, and it is very important that your board package is exactly the way they require. Typical board package can be anywhere between 100 to 300 pages or more, depending on what kind of documents they require and how many co-applicants are applying. Those are the main things that I see pretty much in every co-op board package. You might see pet policy acknowledgement form, fire safety acknowledgement form, sprinkler disclosure, lead-based paint form, window guards form, and things like that. And also you'll need to sign the house rules acknowledgement form as well. Usually this is when you would also submit the necessary checks to pay the closing costs associated with the building. And if you want to see a detailed closing cost breakdown when buying in New York City, I will also put the link of that video in the description below. It's important that your agent is in touch with the seller's agent, because there might be a few forms that needs to be filled out and signed by the seller, and depending on the building, the seller might have a few checks to submit as well. The point of this video is not for you to try to put together your own board package. My goal is for you to be ready and know what's going on, what to expect when purchasing a co-op, and understand how the process works. As I said earlier in the video, the board package step is after you have a signed contract. But if you remember, I also said that there are things that you need to prepare before even submitting your offer. And those things are your financial statements and the proof of your assets. It is very important for your agent to do some research on the building and have your financial statements ready before submitting an offer. You need to have a solid understanding on what your DTI and post-closing liquidity look like, which will determine what kind of apartments you can be qualified for. The worst thing that can happen is if your offer gets accepted, after you have a signed contract, you find out that your DTI is too high or you don't have enough post-closing liquidity to show, which means that you're not qualified for that specific building, which results in your rejection. And you have to start the process all over again. After the board reviews your application, hopefully you'll receive an interview invitation. This means that your application looks good to them and they just want to see you and make sure that you are who you claim to be in your board package. Typically, you just need to be concise and honest with your answers and know what exactly is written in your board package, especially your finances. Depending on the building, your interview can be with one person or with multiple board members. Your agent should be able to prepare you for this interview. That's it for today. Hopefully you got some value out of this video. If you want to see everything about co-ops in one video, including the co-op ownership structure, pros and cons, and much more, you can just click the video you see on your screen. Thanks for watching. Until next time.